North Korea blames the United States and South Korea for the regional tension, saying that their hostilities towards Pyongyang have prevented progress in peace on the peninsula. Addressing the United Nations, a North Korean envoy accused Washington of resorting to a hostile policy despite Pyongyang's compliance with the international community's demands. Kim Sung said his country has halted tests at its nuclear weapons or long-range missiles for nearly 2 years. Kim also accused South Korea of having double-dealing behaviors. He said that while the South paved the way for U.S.-North Korean meetings, it modernized its military at the same time. The North Korean leader and the U.S. president have held 2 summits since last year. However, the talks aimed at dismantling Pyongyang's nuclear program have been stalled over differences between the 2 countries. For more on that, we're joined by political commentator and analyst Jason Unruhe, who's joining us live from Ontario. Mr. Unruhe, what is your take on the analysis that the North Korean envoy has presented to the United Nations? Do you believe that South Korea is double-dealing here?
Well, I would tend to agree that is probably the case to a very large degree. I'm certain that the South really does want peace with their own brothers inside the North. I don't doubt that for a second. The problem is that the South is occupied by the U.S. imperialism, and they make certain dictates to the South that the South has to carry out, or they may end up facing a situation like many countries are facing right now, where there is a coup against them. Whatever leader decides to buck U.S. demands will end up finding themselves mysteriously taken out of power. What essentially the South, I believe, is trying to do is trying to create that peace in order to create a more stable environment, yet this is not what the United States wants. The United States wants the destruction of the DPRK in order to turn it into another client state, very similar, if not worse, than what already exists in the South right now. Now, many subsequent U.S. presidents have said that they want peace on the peninsula. They make all kinds of statements, promises, etc., which they certainly have not lived up to, and in the end have only stabbed the DPRK in the back, regardless of what kind of deal or promises that they make them. Now, this is all part of a destabilization effort. The U.S. makes it look like they want to have peace, when really what they want is the destruction of the anti-imperialist state of the DPRK. Now, Trump rode off of a lot of the advances in peace deal of goodwill between the 2 Koreas afterwards. And Donald Trump said that he wanted peace. He wanted to be able to have that notch in his belt, that he was the one who ended the war. He carried out, more than one meeting with Kim Jong-un in order to try to foment that process. I mean, I feel that there was a lot of bland pleasantries given to each other, but nothing of substance has come out of the United States. The DPRK has set certain terms that they are willing to abide by and others that they are not. And the DPRK took good faith steps in going forward, which have not been reciprocated by the United States. This has all been fluff from the U.S. They say that they're going to do things and they don't do it. So the DPRK has put out a significant effort into trying to minimize much of the hostilities inside of the countries. But that kind of effort has not been reciprocated by the United States. So the DPRK has every reason to be upset about this. They have every reason to be upset at the South, who is essentially trying to please both sides. They're trying to create a peaceful situation with the North and the war, yet at the same time carry out the interests of the United States, which are wholly antithetical to any kind of peace or prosperity on the Korean peninsula. So I would say that it is fair to say that the South is trying to play both sides, is trying to please both sides. And in fact, what would probably be best for the Korean people in general would be a complete rejection of U.S. domination, U.S. occupation, U.S. control in the South entirely.
Thank you very much, political commentator and analyst Jason Unruhe out of Ontario.